Welcome back to Just a Cup on the Believe Network, where we talk performance, mindset, and how to build championship habits when the lights get bright. I'm your host, Bryan Fetzer, and today's guest is Kevin Owens, a globe-trotting pro basketball hoopster that has turned storyteller and the founder of Overseas Famous, and a guy who's logged, I don't even want to know how many miles and minutes and memories and some of the most passionate hoops leagues kind of on the planet, really everywhere. And we're going to be digging into adaptability, identity after sports, and really a playbook for thriving in the overseas market. You know, you can always watch all our podcasts on YouTube, and you can catch us on Believe Network. And now we're going to jump in with Kevin Owens. Kevin, it's been a while being able to get you on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about it to actually be able to dive in and chat now.
That's what we were talking beforehand. I was like, my life is just like out of control. I feel like I'm just trying to it's like kids and I'm building the business and there's all these things. And it's just like, and I have ADHD. So like, sometimes I'm just like, whoa, what's that? So I feel like sometimes I'm like lost in a project and I'm like, oh shoot, like I had 10 things to do. And yeah, like definitely lots of mileage on the body. I mean, my orthopedic can probably answer the exact number. Probably like cut me open and count the rings. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in my bones.
I can only imagine. I mean, you lived, kind of on I'll call it the one-way ticket to pro basketball overseas.
Yes.
What did overseas basketball teach you kind of about the adaptability that maybe college and you played in the G League, so you played in the United States, so it's not like you're adapt from that. But what did that kind of teach you about being adaptable?
It's really, I mean, adaptability is probably the trait that most overseas athletes have in abundance, because when I look at like just even the little trips or going to Poland for the first time, like in your mind, you're an athlete and you're like, wow, they're paying me to fly to another country. And every trip I've ever taken, there's an end point. So like you're like, and it's usually within a week or 2 weeks or something like that, because we went to Europe in college with my college team, but we were there for a week and then we flew home. This was just like, you're just like on an open-ended ticket, and it's like, okay, you're here, but it's like after those first 2 weeks wear off and you're living there, you have to start really figuring things out, and just like what food you want to eat and what people you want to talk to, or where you need to go, or how to drive stick, which I never learned. So like all these weird things that are just like thrown into existence, and you're just trying to concentrate so hard on being an athlete and being the best, because you have to be a pro athlete. So they fly you over halfway around the world. You have to be the best there because they're paying you a lot of money. So if you go and you're worried about all the extra stuff, you'll get sent home. So you have to, it's like one of those things, you just say, screw it, and I'm going to focus in and lock in. And it's like, it's almost adaptability by necessity. Like you don't have any other choice. It's like adapt or die. And I mean, that's, I guess, where they came from. Probably not with overseas basketball. I'm sure there's other examples.
Well, hey, I want to go back. I mean, I am a sucker for March Madness, and I'm a sucker for, what that entails. And I want to kind of go back to when you were in college. You went to Monmouth.
Yes.
And I've actually been to Monmouth a couple of times. I actually did a football broadcast in Monmouth as an analyst during the crazy COVID time. But let's just talk about the Monmouth days and the NCAA run. So exciting.
So exciting. I mean, it's weird because I have an older brother. So my older brother went to UPenn. So he was always a star and I sucked. Like it was just like, oh, you're Jeff's brother. Go play with this ball and throw it against the wall on the sideline. Like we're going to do some real shit over here. And you're like, all right. So it's like, that's where it was kind of like, okay, what exactly is this? So I felt like when I watched my brother go through it, I started to get that feeling. Like my brother, they went to the tournament and I was kind of involved in that because I was still in high school. Mm-hmm. So I was going to games and things like that. And it was so exciting, so fun. And you see it because, I mean, me and my brother used to play our Nerf basketball hoop like in my bedroom and just like pretend I was Seton Hall. I wanted to be Terry DeHare. Terry DeHare was like my legend. So I was Terry DeHare in Seton Hall. My brother was, Lord only knows, probably some big, I don't know, Lithuanian guy. He was like 7 foot big. So like he would like, so we would battle, and the NCAA tournament always held that. That was like the most prestigious thing. Like NBA back in the 80s, it was big, but it wasn't as big. College basketball was bigger than NBA. So we were watching the NCAA tournament and Duke and Kentucky and all these teams. So that was, I grew up watching that. So when I got to Monmouth and I watched what my brother went through at Penn, it became the goal that I was striving for. Obviously, it's always your goal. But like I went to Monmouth, when I got there, we were 4-24 the year before. So I started my freshman year in a record of like the previous year's record of 4-24. The following year, I think we were like 12-14, maybe something like that, kind of my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, we went to the tournament. And it's like, I didn't realize that things could turn that quickly, but we just had a great group of guys and we all kind of came together and bonded. And the NCAA tournament, we were down like 20 points to St. Francis, New York in the final. It was on ESPN. There was like no one in the crowd because there was a huge snowstorm came. None of my friends were there. Like none of it was like just an empty arena and like my mom. And you're like, this is a weird situation that we're going through right now. So we played this game and it was on TV, but we like came back from this deficit and ended up winning at the end and going to the tournament. So like to go in that vein was amazing because you are, not only are you going to the tournament, but you're going in such a dramatic fashion. So like we kind of had this like Cinderella story in our minds, and then we're like sitting there. And so like that was amazing. We go back after the game. It's us and the cheerleaders, like legit, because it was during like spring break. So no one was there on campus. And it was us and the cheerleaders and like 10 feet of snow. And like, so we had a great night. And then the following day, then we go into the whole tournament stuff. We start preparing. Then we get the draw and we get Duke. And it was kind of like, oh, but like in our minds, you're still so fired up. Like we're going to take down Duke. Like we're going to be the Cinderella. Like this is us. And you realize that like everyone's talking to you and just being like, okay, well, if you do this, you guys can beat Duke. And then like logically, you're like, well, I mean, who's Shane Battier, Christian? You're like, this is the best, like, one of the best Duke teams ever. And we're like, we're going to beat them. So we had that whole mindset. It was like such a cool experience. We go to Raleigh, obviously all Duke fans. And just like the pomp and circumstance, which I never experienced. Like I was like, I think athletes, and this is going to sound mean, but I think athletes now are entitled. They get all these pomp and circumstances in high school and college. Like I never got anything. I just went to college, and all of a sudden, even in college, there was not really all this like big stuff. And then when we go to the tournament, there was like buses and like police escorts to the airport, and there's like everyone's making a big deal out of it. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. So get to the arena, we start playing. It's like this packed house, and you found out real quick that you're like, whoa. Like I always assumed that we can take on anyone, and then it's like Mike Dunleavy gave me a jab step and then buried a three. Like before, I couldn't even like get my hands up. I was like, what the hell was that? Like I remember in my head, like what? Oh, and he made it, and I'm like, oh, it was like one of those things, like, oh, okay, all right, this is what we're doing. So like that was kind of we're fighting. They beat the brakes off us, but in our minds, we were like, that was amazing. And then every single day after that, it was like, okay, how are we getting back to this tournament? How are we getting back? But like, just the pomp and circumstance of the NCAA tournament, it's amazing. And then getting to play a team like Duke, who ends up winning the national championship, and we can say like, hey, we lost to the national champions in the NCAA tournament. No one has to read the first round and lose by 50. But at the same time, it's all the sale, it's all in the record book. But those records, I mean, I try to find records of like how many points I scored in like a 2001 game. There's no record of it. I'm like, all right, we can keep that Duke game off the book.
Well, it wasn't like that was the end for you, though. I mean, you get to go play in the G League after that, or was it called the G League at the time, or was it the D League?
It was the D League. Like they called it the Developmental League. That was before Gatorade came in. I guess the Gatorade League. But yeah, it was like the D League because it was like NBDL, National Basketball Development League. So like they threw it out there right away. They were like NBA, NBDL. Like it was just like, all right, you still have some work to do. if you want to join us up here. But it was the D League was great too, because again, everything about my life has been an underdog story. So like, I'm hoping I'm hoping this story's not over and we keep getting these wins later. But when I was in the D League, like I was not supposed to get drafted. I ended up getting drafted. I was not supposed to make the team. I ended up making the team. And then I was not supposed to play professional basketball for 10 years. But I think getting in the door with the D League and then being there for 3 years, because I had a great relationship with my coach. My coach said, this is what I want you to do to stay here and possibly make the NBA. And I went home and I did everything he asked me. And I came back the next year better, stronger. And like, he told me to jump. I said, how high? Because I knew that my NBA dream was resting on him. And I knew that he cared so much about us all making the NBA. Kent Davison, one of the best coaches I've ever had. He cared so much about making us great players and making it to the NBA that it was just like he gave us so much knowledge to say, this is where, if your path is going here, this is where you need to be. And then, Chucky Brown, Mike Brown, 2 assistant coaches, both NBA players, both bigs. So they helped me tremendously. So going to the D League was amazing. But then it was like, all right, it's great, but I'm making $12,000 to $18,000 a year. And you're like, I mean, it was early 2000s, but I mean, no, $12,000 a year. I mean, our season was 5 months long. So Granted, but still, it was just, I also never received a paycheck before, so I was pretty excited about it.
So now you're going from the D League to the world. What was kind of the biggest mind shift when you realized that a dream might follow kind of a different path than going to the NBA and going that route? What was that mind shift kind of like?
It was a shift. So I was in Poland for a brief bit. I went to Poland. The money dried up. We didn't get paid, so we just went home. And then I went back to the D League my final time. And this is like, I mean, this is just over. I go overseas, and the whole reason I wrote a book was because I was a lightning rod. So when I go to Poland, we're there for a little bit, but I kind of got, it's like, all right, we're not getting paid, so I went home. So that was kind of a nightmare. I was like, this is stupid. I'm done with this. So I ended up going to the D League again. And we were in Texas. And I remember we just lost our final game in the playoffs. Luke Schenzer, he played at Georgia Tech. I think he played with Chris Paul. But anyway, like they won the national championship. He was playing on the team in Fort Worth, and they beat us. And I remember just like walking around Fort Worth, and everyone was calling me Dirk. Because I mean, like I had long hair and I didn't have the beard, so like there's some resemblance. So, and I'm 7 feet, so people were like shouting my name. I was like, "What?" I was like, "I'm so mad right now. Like no one cares who I am. They think I'm this guy. I'm like, I'm so over this stuff. I was like, this is just like, I'm not doing this anymore." So I like got real frustrated, and I wrote my brother, and I'm like, "Yo, I'm done." And my dad was going to visit my brother. My brother was playing in Mulhouse, France at the time. My dad was going to visit my brother. My dad got sick and had to like go and get, surgery. And he's just like, I can't go, but I have this paid trip. So I went. And when I went and talked to my brother, it was like the greatest experience because I went and practiced with this team in Mulhouse. I got another shot at overseas basketball without the contract. I got to see it from like I can do this or I can't. Like it was more my decision. So I went over there. I loved it. And I was like, nope. I'm not done. And then 2 months later, I was flying to Australia to really start my overseas career. It was crazy.
There's worse places to go than Australia.
I
gotta ask, favorite country or team story that kind of captures the chaos, the charm of kind of the life overseas, or like a travel snafu, or maybe a wild fan base, or a coach, or something like. I mean, what's a story that comes to your mind, bang, right away?
Well, I have two. So the first would be obviously going to New Zealand. So I fly into New Zealand. Like I was in Australia, then I went to New Zealand 2 years later.
Wellington, great place.
Oh my God, loved Wellington. So I flew into Wellington. And obviously, we know flying from Philadelphia to Wellington is not like a 10-minute flight. So it was like all day. I don't really sleep well in flights because I'm so big. So I barely slept. I land. It's like obviously morning. So I'm like, great. So they had a game. It was like early afternoon. So they had a game that night, my team I was playing for, but I was not playing yet. So I go, I'm like wearing flip-flops to I was just so out of sorts. And I go and like we're all hanging out. And then I was like, went back to the hotel. I kind of introduced myself to the team, and legit, they were like, no, you're not going to sleep. And they made me go out. And we went out all night, like all night, to the point where we had to meet for 7:00 flight in the hotel lobby. And I hadn't slept yet. I was like, where am I? So we flew from like Nelson back to Wellington. It was like a 20-minute flight, and then got there. And it's like, then you're experiencing everything again. You're like, oh my God, here's my apartment. Here's this. I was like so sleep deprived. I probably took me a week to kind of adjust. So that was like the craziness of arriving and like your team being like, we're partying. So New Zealand, they get down. So that was a really good experience of like the best teammates.
Some great food, lamb, the wine. I mean, phenomenal place.
Perfect. And like, I was like a nerd. So I'm like, where did Lord of the Rings take place? Like sitting there looking and things. People were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I'm sorry. I got nothing. Weird dude.
What's your favorite country you've ever played in?
I think Australia was amazing. Australia was perfect. I lived in Cairns. It was paradise. I lived on a resort, on a golf course, overlooking the Great Barrier Reef. Like the everything about it was perfect. The fans were amazing. And that was my first experience overseas. So I feel like I had training wheels. Not everyone gets that. I got training wheels. The Poland thing, I was only there for, like a month or two. This was like, I was there for a long time. But when I got there, it's like everyone's speaking English. The only difference between, like major difference, obviously subtle differences, but like the major difference was when I went, it was like, okay, you're going to have to learn to drive on the wrong side of the road. I was like, all right, here we go. So like right turns became a huge thing for me because I'm used to just making that quick. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, coming traffic. Nope. Just shift over. So that was the adjustment. But Australia was amazing. Just perfect. And the basketball was really good. And I was happy and I played outstanding. So it was just a really good situation.
I mean, I remember my first trip to Australia and, getting the rental car. They're like, you don't have anything listed on what side you're coming from. America. Hold on. And they, they made it manual or they made it automatic, which was nice.
Yes.
You get out to get in and I'm like, oh crap. I totally forgot. This is the opposite side. I was freaked out. I had my freak out moment. So I can completely relate to that in the right terms. You concentrate so much more driving when it's the reverse side from what you're used to than normal. I mean, you're driving with your
Dale Earnhardt
stuff in the US. Over there, it's like every turn, every pass, everything is like, I don't even think I had the radio on for the first like 20, 30 minutes.
I'm saying, it's just been like my like it was just like my medulla oblongata was just like, nope, like I need you. My actual brain had to work the whole time. So it was like it's like mentally exhausting to kind of do some of these things because you're just so used to kind of like on autopilot, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, not gonna work.
This question will take us into a break, and it's going to kind of lead into others. So a little identity pivot. When the jersey comes off or pauses, what would you tell athletes about, changing the game, like getting out when it's time to go, when you kind of realize that?
The thing is when you start identifying that you have this amount of time that you have on this earth. And when I talk about basketball, I was retired by 32, 33. I started playing like pretty consistently, like college, high school, like 16 maybe. So it's like less than 20 years of my life that I was giving everything to this, and it became my whole identity. And then you shift away from that and you're like, that's less than 20 years. Like you have this whole other part of life like that. It's you can't be defined. I always compare it to like the high school quarterback who still goes back to the same bar and is like, oh, remember I had like Al Bundy, like 6 touchdowns. And you're like, yeah, but what have you done lately? And that's when I was guilty of that. I got into that identity crisis of just being like, I'm a professional athlete, give me a job. And then you're like, no, it's not that easy. So it was tough.
This episode of Just a Cup is powered by Iron Faith Nutrition. Simple, honest formulas that support real-world performance, from curcumazyme for recovery and inflammation to Biozyme Pro Blend for gut energy and gut, changing products. Build a smarter, better daily stack with ironfaithnutrition.com. And don't forget to subscribe on Believe and YouTube so you never miss a cup. We're back with Kevin Owens, and we're talking about his journey playing overseas professional basketball, and really kind of starting the company overseas. It's kind of amazing
Yeah.
when I kind of think about it. So what kind of brought you into this new world of starting a company that you did?
It's crazy because I think it started when I got off the plane. So I played in Estonia and we just won our last game, like, playoffs. I'm like, fans are cheering. I take my jersey off. I sign it. I give it to a fan, throw it to a fan. I'm like, this is just like the life. I'm walking away on my own terms. Like, this is great. Like, I knew I was like, I'm done. This is it. So I walk off. I'm like, fly home. I'm walking through the Philadelphia airport and someone just like stops me and it's just like, yo, you should play for the Sixers. Like, do you play for the Sixers? And I'm like, all of these people in these countries know exactly who I am. And I'm here in my hometown. And you're like, you're tall. And I'm like, what just happened? So that's where I came up with Overseas Famous, because it's like, I'm only famous overseas. Like, I don't have that identity here. It only happens overseas. So overseas people know me as the basketball player, as the star, as this. Back home, they know me as, oh, you went to Camden Catholic, high school 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, what have you been up to? Because I always say, like the Homer Simpson meme where you're disappearing into the bushes, that's overseas basketball. You're like smiling, you're there, and all of a sudden it's just like, where did he go? And you're just like, I don't know. And all of a sudden you reappear 10 years later, like, hey, everyone, give me a job. And it's just, that's why I kind of started Overseas Famous. And then I started writing the book, Overseas Famous. And that was really just, I retired and my brother and I were talking. He's like, dude, you've had every crazy story, like everything that I've ever taught, because overseas basketball now is more accessible. Back then, without social media and all these things, no one knew what was going on over there. Now you can kind of get a feel. But back then we had no idea. So like everything was word of mouth. So it was vets telling me, hey, this is what you have to look out for overseas. So when I got there and I'm like learning all this, now when I come home, I'm like, okay, here's what you have to work on overseas. So like when I was talking to my brother about this, he's like, dude, every crazy situation you've had, you haven't gotten paid, you got hurt and they denied you claim, like you've had things thrown at flares thrown at you and coins thrown, like it's just like all these crazy scenarios in overseas basketball that can happen. You've won championships. I've been an all-star. It's like you've had the highs and lows of overseas basketball. Write a book about it. So that's why I was like, all right. So I just started writing my book. And I was already doing a lot of writing for Slam Magazine and some other places. So I was like blogging kind of my experience as a pro athlete. So I just took some of those stories and then just put them together and then made this book. And from there, it was like, okay, what's the next step? And that's when it started opening up other doors. And then I'm like, okay, so what did I need when I retired? Which was my question. My identity question was, okay, so now if I can't be an athlete anymore, at least I can go back and help those, because I got done and I struggled and everything was a struggle. So that was tough. And I think I just needed to figure it out and avoid those struggles. So that's when I came up with Overseas X and just trying to create a community that has all these resources that are available to all these athletes that I needed when I retired. So I'm on, like I always say, I'm like, everyone else is on like a 10-year head start with me. And I'm like, you know what? But I don't really care. Like I needed to do this. I needed to find the answers and solutions to these things, even if it meant I had a 10-year gap of just like grinding it out at home. So it was just, I mean, I'm like we said, adaptability there, adaptability here, grinding it out everywhere. That's just pretty much my life.
When you say when I say the word skill versus situation,
Mhm.
what's the one part of your game that got better because you were overseas?
I think
And
my passing. Oddly, like I was always a good rebounder. I could shoot the ball. I can finish. I was fairly athletic for like a 6'10", kind of like slow-footed, heavy-footed dude. But I think the biggest thing was my passing. Is like overseas, the game moves a lot different. I mean, I was used to American style where like there's a lot of plays, like you're running plays. Like that was that old school, like set picks and do
yeah,
this. Overseas was the first time that I started experiencing this like free flowing offense where guys are cutting around you constantly. So I was starting to get the ball high post on the wing and stuff. And I always loved the pass. And I was just started like throwing crazy passes and I was like hitting them. So I love that style because now it created my ability to pass. So I'm like throwing overhead passes and throw it over my head. Like I was doing all that crazy stuff because I was like, I know someone's going to be there. And it was the first time in my career that overseas that it's like everyone's moving. And I love this, especially in Europe. It's just everyone's constantly moving. So I thought I love the style of the game. And you see it with some of these European players who come over here. They know how to pass. They know how to move without the ball, and it's fun to watch the game evolving based on kind of those same concepts that I learned overseas.
when you look at like things that are really important that most people don't, I shouldn't say most people, the average fan doesn't realize the recovery piece, the living
Mhm.
situations, food. Was there a situation that in one of the countries that just getting adjusted to the food? Because forget Australia, forget New Zealand, pretty traditional, I'd say.
Yes.
But when you get into Poland, you get into Estonia, you get there. I mean, I had bear in Estonia. I mean, oily, greasy. It wasn't great, but I mean, I would always try anything,
Yeah.
go different places. But was there ever a time from a recovery standpoint
Mhm.
where the food or the situations wasn't quite ideal or tough to deal with?
So South Korea was the epitome of great and then like the worst food I've ever had. Like, and it's like in consecutive days. Like Monday, you're like, this is the best meal I think I've ever had in my life. And then Tuesday, you're like, I don't think I can eat this. Like, how is this possible? But like so my story of something from South Korea, we were playing in a game and it was like I was starving. So we had our shoot around. I mean, we lived in dorms out there. It was very like college like we weren't really allowed off campus. Like we were like pretty much just like we were their employees and we stayed where they told us to stay. So we couldn't really do anything. We weren't going out. So when I was there, they would feed us in the cafeteria every day. So we would go down and eat. And our pregame meal one time was like, it was like I forget what they called, like a mud lobster. It was so horrible. Like, and I was starving. So I'm like trying to eat. I'm like, I have a game. And I'm like eating this mud lobster. I'm like, this is the worst food. Like, so but I'm like, how are you serving this? And then the next day, it's like the what we go to as Americans to Korean barbecue. It was every night, and it was just like we had a thing on our middle of our table, and they would cook the meats in it, and we'd get all the accessories, and then they put it on my plate, and I'm like, all right, like it was amazing except for the mud lobster. And I'm pretty sure I'm sure there's a real name for it, but I just remember mud lobster because it did not look like a lobster. It looked like it was just like a lobster that had like lots of armor on it. I'm like, I don't think this is normal. It was no good. And it didn't taste good either.
I was very curious on that. Let's talk money. We'll talk
Yes.
money. What do the young pros they get? They get wrong about contracts, housing. You just talked about living in dorms,
Yep.
getting paid on time. I've heard countless stories of both men and women players
Mhm.
overseas not getting paid.
Yep.
Um, how can they protect themselves, or what advice? And I know this doesn't necessarily apply to most people, but I think it'd be fascinating to hear the advice just as a general public, like, because these
Yeah.
are things that most people would ever realize or even think would be happening.
It I mean, first advice, join Overseas X. It's like our community. We have these resources, little pitch, but I'd say like in terms of the whole entire situation, when you're the it is. There's a lot of things that you have to look out for. So I would say, like, to an athlete who's planning on going overseas, it's tough because we're like job, go, dominate, and then come home happy. And it's like we kind of are like creatures of habit like that. So what really you have to do is, and it's tough because like I would say research a little bit. The biggest issue is I've had times when my agent called me, and this is most of the time. My agent called me and was like, "Hey, this team wants you in Sweden or wherever." And I'm like, "Okay, when do I have to leave?" And they're like, "Tomorrow." So you're like, "I'm leaving for 10 months. I have to have my bag already kind of packed. You have to stay in shape. Like you're staying in shape." But like I think the biggest thing is kind of doing some research before you go. Does this country that you're going to, do they have a reputation for not paying well? There's a lot of countries like that, especially in the lower leagues. You're going to get into like, and I'm not throwing countries under the bus, but like the Armenias, the Cyprus, even some of the like lower leagues in Greece, Italy, like even some of those leagues, you're going to get teams that aren't going to be able to pay. So it's going to create issues with your paycheck. So what I always tell people is, there's when you go, research first, because it's going to save you the headache. If you're going there and you're like, I have a 50-50 shot of getting paid, it's kind of like, all right, well, that's kind of on you because you knew that this was a really dicey situation, yet you went anyway. So that is your kind of like, you were looking for that money. It's just the wheel didn't land, so you have to figure it out. So I think with the money situation, do your research. I think a lot of the other stuff too. There's so many programs. Like we offer a program called Currencies Direct, which actually like saves you money. They connect to your bank account and they'll save you the transfer fee. So when your team sends money to your bank account back home, Currencies Direct will like almost be that extra one right here, and then they will give you a much cheaper exchange rate. While it won't matter if you have like $1,000 or something like that you're getting paid, but if you're getting paid $20,000 to $25,000 to $30,000 a month, that adds up. So finding something where they're eliminating some of those payouts that your bank is going to have, because they're not used to someone shipping money overseas. So like if you talk to your bank too, you can probably figure that out. It's just tough because sometimes the time period is very low. But that's why I always tell, we have stuff on our site, but I always tell people, make a list of the important things that you want to ask when that contract comes, because it's going to come and it's going to come fast. So what are the list of things that you want to know about that country? Because I always say, like, you go to a job interview and they ask you 20 questions, etc. Then they say you should be asking 5 questions. So it's the same thing when you get a contract. You can't just be like, okay. You got to be like, all right, hold on, this is great. Let me review it. Do you offer it? And like have that conversation. They want you for a reason. They sent you a contract because they think you are a good basketball player. So you should advocate for yourself and make sure that those things that I have in that checklist are checked off so that you at least know or are prepared for what the things that could happen. Because while there's a lot of pitfalls overseas, it's a freaking awesome time. Like it is amazing. And I feel like people always say, like, give me it's like, you're always negative. I'm like, no, I'm not negative. I'm just pointing out the flaws. But when you go, so you can enjoy your experience, because if you know that these things are coming, then it's not coming as like a huge surprise. Now you're prepared for it. And now, like we said, being adaptable, being prepared, I think both go kind of coincide.
Now I want to kind of shift for a second, because being a former college coach and understanding that lens, I want to kind of take the college coach lens and say, hey, if you're advising our college basketball staff, what's one practice tweak or something that could better prepare, players for the reality of, global pro hoops? Because the reality of it is there's a very, very few number that get to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
And now with the G League kind of expanding, but it's still, there's a whole nother world out there. What kind of tips would you give a college coach?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing would be most likely to make sure that everything that you do in practice is a high pressure situation, because with overseas, and like, it's because overseas is so high pressure, because you go, and if you are not the best within 2 days, they will send you home. So you have to go there. I got off the plane from Poland, and like 10-hour flight in coach. And then I got off the flight and I had to like drove to some KFC and drove 2 hours to Roswavik and then get there. And they're like, okay, let's go practice. And I'm like, what? Like I'm eating this like disgusting KFC. I'm like, I've been on a plane for 10 hours and then I have to like hop in and practice. So you have to be there complete. And I can't, and there's no like, oh man, like, give me a day. It's like, all right. And you just have to say, screw it and go and handle your business. So like that high pressure situation, the more you can teach those high pressure situations where like you have to star, or like it's like win or go home. Like you can't, like everything has to be win or go home, because that's what overseas basketball is. You go to the NBA, you get a 5-year contract. We've seen this all the time. People will talk bad about you, but they're not taking your money. Like you're getting your money. So when you go overseas, even if you are the best player, and even if you just didn't show your best self for those 2 days, they'll send you home, and then it will tarnish your reputation. And there's thousands and thousands of athletes who just didn't get off to that right start, and they didn't get to prove themselves, and they might not have ever made it in pro basketball because that time when those lights were on and that pressure was on, they weren't ready for it. And in turn, now we have an issue.
I want to kind of talk the mental side of basketball real quick, or just sports in general.
Yeah.
So, because obviously you're in a different country. You're typically by yourself. You're kind of out on your own. What kind of mental performance, was there any kind of go-to reset or go-to thing that you did to kind of get yourself kind of ready to play? Breath work, language, rituals, any of those kind of things?
So I was always like a music, like I was like a same thing every single day. It was very consistent. What I listened to before games, like I was crazy to the point where when I was doing things with my socks and putting my socks on, I wanted to make sure that part of the song was on at that part. Cause it like, as I pulled my last sock up, I like always tap my calf twice. And when I pulled it up the last time, it was like, I had that, like it was Busta Rhymes and I had it and I was like, all right. And then when I went, I would like get up and we'd be about to go out and I'd listen to It's Amazing by Kanye West. And it's just the beginning. It was like, it's amazing. I'm the reason everybody's fired up this evening. And you're like that. I was like, let's go. Like when I said that, because that was the biggest thing about overseas. Like you have to mentally get yourself ready to go. And when I said, I would hear those words, like, it's amazing. I'm the reason everybody's fired up this season or this evening. And you're like, I'm here. And it would like make you reflect and be like, these people are here. I'm the best player on this team. I'm the one they brought over from America. I'm the highest paid player on the team. They are here to watch you. So this is, listen, I'm a Philadelphia fan. So I'm going to start by saying that. So I'm a Philadelphia fan. If like in next weekend, I'm going to be at Citizens Bank Park screaming my head off like a crazy lunatic. And I know how much it means to me for this team to do so well. So as a fan growing up, I was so big of a fan of like the Phillies and a lot of these teams. So when I actually was able to reflect and be like, okay, these people are all here to see you, I was almost able to reverse it in my mind to be like, remember how you felt when they didn't give everything you got. So you have to go out there and give everything you have, because what would you do as a fan of a Philadelphia fan if someone came out and didn't give everything they had? So that was why I would make sure that I went out there and gave everything I had, because that song would, these lyrics would kind of remind me.
Amazing. That's it, legitimately amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was like, it's just like that was my mind. It just, and yeah, Busta Rhymes got me there. Kanye took me home.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, so let's talk content and community. How is Overseas Famous evolving? The podcast, the writing, the mentorship, kind of what's next?
So what we built is what we created. We have Overseas Famous. The Overseas Famous is like our media arm. So we have the podcast, we have the book, we have the merchandise. We're putting out more. We just had the whole entire meeting last week with like a shirt designer. We're putting out all these new memorabilia, or like all this new merch with different slogans on it that are kind of really cool. So we're going to be introducing that. But then we kind of like shifted over to this community. We called it Overseas X. And that community is just where it's an ecosystem where all these athletes are able to join. There's a membership fee, but the membership fee is very cheap, and it's mainly there to keep up with the maintenance of the site and also to keep scammers out. Because the one thing about overseas basketball, because there's not enough eyes on it, because there's not enough information about it, because we're still learning this completely like alien thing that we're figuring out. Now people are going to come in and take advantage of those guys who are like, I play college basketball. Can you get me a job overseas? And they're everywhere. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Pay me this much money and I'll get you a job. They pay them. Hello. Like, it's just scammers are everywhere. So I said, Overseas X, a platform where it's free of scammers. Every relationship you create on there with business leaders and people, people who are selling things and businesses and affiliates and other athletes and veterans and all these things. Like, now you have this little community of people where you can share. Well, we have a lot of vets, and a guy can be like, hey, I'm playing in Bulgaria this year. Has anyone ever played there? And then one of our vets is like, yeah, I played there 2 years ago. Like, who's the team? Oh my God, that's the same team. Go to this restaurant, go here. The coach is great. This is the guy to talk to. So having those little community moments where suddenly now you're able to create a little more of a comfort level when you step into this, like we said, like this adaptable, crazy world. Creating comfort is what we're trying to do. So our slogan, we're Liverpool. Like, I'm like Liverpool, like never walk alone. Like, you are always going to have someone with you. You are not doing this alone. We are got you, because I've done this before. Oh, I love it.
Right there.
I love that.
Favorite protein for sure.
It's amazing. I told my wife, I was like, the one thing I want to do, like there's a lot, but like my bucket list thing is go to a Liverpool game and be there while they sing "You'll Never Walk Alone." I was like, yeah, same. It's amazing.
I've had chills because I've been there. Unbelievable.
So cool.
Got to see them take a whoop up on Man City. Great. It's a cheap plug for Liverpool.
Nice.
That's amazing. I mean, it's obviously a niche area, but at the same time, so needed. Just because community is so important, and it's how we survive. It's how we kind of make it. It's how somebody, can get through those tough times and get through some adversities and changes, and to have a company that helps do that is amazing.
Yes.
Real quick, where could they find the website, all those kind of things if somebody's just turning in?
Of course, www.theoversexx.com. We got the little Ohio State flair in there, so we wanted to make sure we're the Overseas X. So we have www.theoverseasx.com.
All right, we're going to wrap this whole thing up with rapid fire questions, just quick hits, short answers. I'm just going to throw it out to you. It's going to come right off your head and everything. Okay.
It could get weird, but I'm cool with it. Whatever.
And we want to, the goal is to kind of make me go, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It might happen.
All right. Most hostile road gym you survived?
Bashkini or Peja, both in Kosovo. Crazy. Throwing coins, throwing flares onto the court. You're just like, all right, I guess those basketball guys. I mean, I'm from Philly. You guys are acting like, if I'm sitting in mid-court being like, you guys are acting insane right now from Philadelphia. That's like, all right, something's wrong here. Best
teammate nickname you've had or given?
Mine was always Knockout. So I was like KO. KO was always my name. It's just like, I guess when I was young, because I was Kevin Owens. So KO became like my nickname. And then when I was overseas, like KO, like Australia, KO, and like Knockout was like, so it became like some variants of KO or Knockout that a lot of people know me by. So people probably don't even know my first name, but they're like, oh, KO. Yeah, I know him. Like, all right.
Nice. One drill every high school or college big should master.
Mike and drill. Mike and drill, do it. I mean, you want to finish, you want to be able to move your body and work on your footwork. It handles all of it.
Super famous. Most underrated league for player development.
Overseas?
Yes.
Overseas, I would say France. I mean, you see the development of some of like the Wembanyamas and there's like just lots of athletic, tall people in France. And I mean, I know Tremaine Dalton is a friend of mine, does an amazing job in France, developing a lot of players. So there's just so many opportunities in France, especially the young leagues. They do it really right, and you see kind of what's happening as France is really elevating itself into that world domination of basketball discussion.
Best book or podcast besides your own, and besides this one, for athletes.
Atomic Habits, I love, just in terms of just like your mental side of creating, like we talked about adaptability. If you can create the positive habits in your mind, you're going to break a lot of the issues that you're going to have. So setting up those different things in your mind, it helps you as a business leader. It helps you. I just think it's a great book to really reestablish. We talk about habits all the time as human beings, but we never really look at like how they develop and why they develop and what sort of development we need for them. So I think that's a great book. The podcast, it's crazy because I just was listening to like one of the funniest stories one of the funniest podcasts I've ever listened to. So I was listening to Conan O'Brien, Needs a Friend, and he had on like Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, and like all these guys, and they wrote a screenplay for Hans and Franz, and for 3 episodes they read the script, doing like Arnold Schwarzenegger, doing the accents. It was probably the funniest hour and a half of podcast I've ever. So Conan O'Brien, if you're like, it was brilliant. It was so funny. So that was the last thing I listened to where I was like, that's the funny. I'm so entertained by this. But that's pretty like, so that was my last amazing podcast.
I love it. Final question. We're going to wrap it up here. And it's one that I try to do on a regular basis. A line of advice to yourself, your rookie year self.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give?
I mean, my wife has this tattooed on her calf. It's one of her quotes that her mom said. It's one of those quotes, but like, this too shall pass. Everything you do everything that bad happens will end. So like the bad parts of overseas, even if it ends horribly and you get sent home, it's over. It's done. Now what are you going to do? So like, this too shall pass. Like with overseas, like you gotta have thick skin, because like I said, some of these athletes came over, tried so hard, didn't make it, and they're like, I'm so much better than these guys, and they had to kind of grind their way in. So I think that's like my this too shall pass is a great quote to kind of just let people know, take your time, relax, everything will be fine.
Well,
we have a guest. I was going to say
guest sighting in the background. I think it might be a first for Just a Cup. Kevin, I really appreciate it. Unbelievable. This has to be one of my my favorite. Awesome stuff. Real talk for athletes. Chasing dreams. Coaches preparing them for it. If you've enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe and follow and listen. Make sure to check out Kevin. Go check out all the things that he's doing at Famous Overseas and his company. Unbelievable stuff. Hey, you can get this on Believe, on the Believe Network, Believe.com. Get on YouTube, watch on YouTube. Big thanks to Iron Faith Nutrition for powering us through the show. I'm Bryan Fetzer. Remember, performance is simple, not easy. The next time, have a great one. God bless.